And I'm Purple Sway 22 here with my co-host Styled Pigeon. Happy
Yo.
Sunday, my dude. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. I'm so excited. Every single Sunday that we do a show, I'm just stoked to dive into it. I keep going further and further down this rabbit hole, so I'm having a blast. How are you
Yeah,
today?
I'm doing great, man. Today the rabbit hole goes a little bit further. We're talking about understanding the risks of an NFT addiction. I feel like I'm kind of like an Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that, but for NFTs. So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Hey, Paul's in the house.
What's up,
Sweet.
Paul? Good morning, man.
So
Well, hey,
since Paul's now here, you want to run roundly?
yeah. So, yeah, I got to give a shout out to our sponsors, Roundly X. It's a simple to use app that allows you to round up your purchases into Bitcoin and other digital assets with your spare change. It's not just a roundup tool too for dollar cost averaging. It has an awesome portfolio tracker. You can track all of those NFTs that we'll be talking about later today, alongside your crypto and your stocks and your savings and all that jazz. You can sign up with code Gingerly, as you see here on the screen, and get yourself $4 of Bitcoin. Try out that portfolio tracker. It's pretty awesome. I use it to track my NFTs regardless of what chain they're on. And if you're outside of the US, you can go ahead and sign up and use that portfolio, and you can see all your stuff in your own currency. So it's really easy to use for dollar cost averaging, but also for portfolio tracking features. So with that, without any more delay, let's dive into the episode. Awesome.
All right, NFTs. You
Yeah.
ready?
So at the end of last episode, we were talking all about Bitcoin. Episode 9 was beginning with Bitcoin. And Paul said no NFTs for me, which is funny you say that, Paul, because I think one day that you will be using NFTs, but you may not particularly know about it. Paul likes to talk about identity solutions a lot. And, what if all of our driver's license and health records were just on the blockchain? Would that be super convenient? Well, maybe you'll be using NFTs to do that, Paul. So I want to just tie in the two episodes. So last week we kind of teased out this episode because of your particular journey, Pigeon, right? So you
Mhm.
went like I did. We both kind of went the shitcoin route to start off with. And then both of us kind of like fell into this, Bitcoin is like what we really want to focus on, right? Like we both dollar cost average Bitcoin regularly, which is why Roundly X is such a good sponsor for us, because DCA is something that we're, sticking to. But then there's to me, at least as the old dog, there seems to be this divide between getting from Bitcoin only into wanting to understand NFTs. Like you have people like Paul here who are geniuses in the space, right? But they don't want to touch NFTs because it's just like too much, or maybe it's like it's hard to relate to Bitcoin. It's hard to connect those two values. So how do you, I guess, make that first step, from Bitcoin to NFTs?
Well, so for me, the big transition happened when it's not, you can't really go straight from Bitcoin to NFT. In my opinion, you kind of have to take a more circuitous route. Always love it when I get to drop circuitous in normal conversations. So I start with Bitcoin and go, Bitcoin is this, Bitcoin equals freedom. Just like Paul says, he and I actually disagree on some stuff, but most of it's political. As far as the tech and everything goes, he and I are actually in pretty much the same place as far as Bitcoin goes. He's definitely more interested in the what I would call altcoins, like Ethereum. um,
Oh, shots fired. You're saying that on an NFT episode too, no less.
no, and I poke fun at ETH because I'm such a Bitcoin mostalist, as we like to say. But
Yeah.
Ethereum does bring some interesting things to the table. I don't mean to hate on them too much, but I start with Bitcoin, and then from Bitcoin, I actually end up working my way to Web3. Right. So the question is, if Bitcoin can do this for finance, how can we use Web3 to do the same things that Bitcoin does for finance for the entirety of the internet?
Right.
Because the internet's such a big part of our lives, like it or love it or hate it, it doesn't matter. It's part of our lives. It's not really going anywhere anytime soon, assuming no cataclysmic events like global
Yeah.
nuclear war or whatever. But
In which case we'll
oh,
have more problems, right, than like NFTs, you know, going away or whatever. I'll let you troubleshoot that for a second. Um, Yeah, so I actually think it's really cool that you pointed out like you did with what Bitcoin equals Web3 finance. And then we need other Web3 things to take care of other aspects of our life, be that healthcare or identity. Yeah, I'm riffing for you. It's all good. I wanted to say this anyway. Um, so Ethereum, it's funny that you bash on Ethereum because that is exactly why Ethereum came to be, was the smart contract aspect of blockchain, right? So smart contracts are the next effort, I guess, from Bitcoin to like, how do we make products and services into this like decentralized Web3 thing that Bitcoin is trying to add to finance. So
Perfect.
Ethereum
It sounds like
did
you
it.
picked up exactly where I left off. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I
Okay,
did. I
cool.
totally did it. It's been great. You're gonna rewatch this video and go like, oh dang, he like absolutely killed it.
Such a smooth segue.
Yeah. So no, but I was saying like, so it was funny that you bashed on Ethereum because they're the ones that kind of introduced the smart contract idea,
Hmm.
right? That which a smart contract is literally just trying to take the decentralized blockchain application and provide an internet layer or a layer to build upon for other products and services. Um, and you know, it
And
was
all
really
the
exciting, but then there wasn't a good avenue for that on Bitcoin at the time.
right, right. And it goes to, I mean, it's the same thing as all the like all the cop sci people will be familiar with this, right? It's like when all you could do was write in binary, yeah, you couldn't do a whole lot. I mean, you had to sit there and plug a bunch of ones and zeros in, but then you get, and all the tech people are going to be driven crazy by my explanation of this, but you get layers above that, and it builds up to eventually a programming language, and then that you can do all sorts of incredible stuff with, and very, very quickly. And I think
Yeah.
that's, we're really in the like, we're just learning how to build on top of the binary stage. And that's something that a lot of people forget, right? Is, yeah, NFTs may not have a ton of utility that's super visible right now, but this is really early technology. Like,
Yeah.
once we are able to figure out the appropriate infrastructure and solve all the technical problems that go along with the programmability that's associated with blockchain, then things start looking different. And
Right.
I was actually having a conversation with my parents the other day, and I was telling them how they're going to end up using Web3 all the time. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
Um, and my dad's kind of a critic, so he was stepping in to say like, okay, well, what will that transition look like? And I had to tell him, I was like, honestly, you probably won't even notice
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it.
No, I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
did anybody notice the transition from Web 1 to Web 2?
No, yeah, that's I was gonna make that comparison. Yeah, 100%. So like Paul is mentioning in the chat here, like he never wrote in binary, which is fascinating. I mean, you know, binary was a long time ago from one
Yeah, it
perspective,
was.
right? Like it's been a while. But I think that there are people that would listen to the show that could identify with like, okay, Web one back in the day was you're gonna hard code your own website and it doesn't do anything. It's a text page more or less, right? Like there's no
Mhm.
interoperability with the user. You just read it. And then Web 2 was, well, okay, now we're going to be able to actually interact with this page and, you know, like maybe order something, right? Or buy something from somebody. And it wasn't like, it was just a natural progression to the next thing, right?
Mhm.
And then now we're at a point where everyone is so used to just ordering things from the internet that you're ordering fast food, you know, on your cell phone.
Yep.
And it was just this progression where it was like we just add small upgrades until like all of a sudden the basic consumer is so comfortable using this that no one really cares to ask what the underlying technology is. You know, how does an email work? I don't know, but we use it all the time. You know, I think
Yeah.
you're exactly right. NFTs are going to
And
be the same way.
it'll be sprinkled throughout first until eventually it's completely integrated. And I think that's a great segue into some of what's going to be possible with the programmability. I want to make sure, though, that we kind of wrap up how Bitcoin got to NFTs, right?
Yeah.
So I'm I use a very conservative investment strategy in everything that I do. I'm very risk averse. That's just the way that I am as my personality, and I don't make much money either, so it kind of helps to mitigate any potential losses and things like that. Things like that.
Things
Um,
like that. Hey, we're all
yeah, a
Southerners in here.
little
It's all good.
southern
We
coming through.
can...
Um, so once you get to Web 3, then that trickles down into, okay, well, what are the component parts that add up to make this possible? Those are pretty much NFTs. In my conservative approach, I pretty much only deal within the Stacks network or the Stacks blockchain. because I like what they have. And even though they certainly have some technical stuff to work out, I really think that that's going to happen um, over time. And if it doesn't happen, then something almost identical will pop up with a
Yeah.
different team, and then they'll make it happen, right? So I'm still on board with all of that. So that chain is essentially making things possible. Like one of the things that I'm working on right now is I'll have eventually a full Web 2 website. Won't be Web 3. I'm not a programmer. I would love to be able to program it from the ground up and make it 100% Web 3. It's not possible for me yet. But
Right.
on the back end, there are things like droplinked.com that allow me to have a store available that is actually gated by NFTs, right? So you go to my website, you click on a particular link, and that just takes you to a drop link store that I own. That then you have to log in with your wallet, and it does a quick check to make sure you have the appropriate NFTs to access that content or those products or whatever it happens to be.
So it's like
Um,
hybrid Web
yeah,
2.5 kind of.
precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that that's somewhat, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that that's because of the massive load of the creation of that infrastructure. It's actually a much heavier load to transition from Web 2 to Web 3 than it is to transition from Web 1 to Web 2.
Yes.
Because Web 2 is still HTML and whatnot, right? Or it might be
Yeah.
XHTML or whatever,
Sure.
but it's still essentially the same basic premise. Whereas
Right.
this is a much bigger step. So there's a few steps in between that we'll have to hit, milestones, if you will, that'll happen before that comes about.
Right.
Once that does come about and the infrastructure is in place, what are the top like functionalities that you see, utilities that you see for NFTs going forward that are going to be blowing people away?
Yeah. So really great question. So as you probably know, if you're watching here, I also work for NeoSwap AI, which we actually had Kieran, their chief strategy officer, on the show. Man, I can't remember the episode right now. But we were
I
talking
don't
about
remember the
commerce.
number.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Go back and check it out if you haven't watched it yet. But so, as a part of that job, I have been looking into the functionality of GameFi, I guess, which is basically we like to make up all these words that add "fi" onto it for finance, right? But it's basically adding Web3 functionality to gaming. And so, what's really cool is that back in the 2016-17 crypto market, I was working for a consulting firm, and my job at that time was just to analyze new projects. And there were a lot of projects that started kind of looking at this sector because of how large the potential economy could be. So basically, stats say right now that the esports gaming industry, and you can help me out with some of the bigger titles there, like what are some of the big game titles that people play? Like
So
League of
things like
Legends is a big one, right?
that's the first one I was going to say. League of Legends. I
Yeah.
have to say, Rocket League is actually growing a lot. For those of y'all that don't know, I do. I don't really stream Rocket League, but I post videos about Rocket League on a pretty regular basis, and it's a very regular occurrence in my day to day to jump on and play some twos. With a buddy of mine, and the RLCS is massive. I mean, they have an over $6 million prize pool. I think
Right.
year before last. I don't even know what it's grown to now. It just keeps getting bigger. Things like Counter Strike, I think, is still a
Hmm.
big esport. Even some VR stuff is actually now going the esports route. Um, it's not Valorant. Valorant's a flat screen. Um, but
But so to
I'll have
my
to post
to
some
my point
extra
here,
links to that stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, as a side note, if you are watching, you should check out Pigeon's YouTube channel, because the Rocket League content is just top notch. The clips and giggles that you do, that's just like a highlight of cool things that happen when you're playing, are so entertaining. I love watching that. So yeah, if you're into
Thanks,
gaming at
sir.
all, definitely check out Pigeon's YouTube channel. It's super awesome. But all this to say, so the gaming industry is already established as a pretty massive economy. But most of the money is, like you say, through prize pools, right? It's very
Hmm.
centralized. It's these big companies that come in and they're like, hey, we want to incentivize players, so we're going to make a professional sports league kind of thing. And you see that. Oh, thanks for throwing up the YouTube there, Nick. I appreciate that. So Pigeon does a lot of work, not just with Rocket League, but also, as you can see, with Bitcoin Badgers, which is a stacks-based NFT project we can talk about at some point. Anyway, kind of got derailed. All that to say,
Whoa, YouTube channel.
yeah, YouTube. The gaming industry is huge. Currently, they're bringing in like enough revenue to be comparable to like the NFL in terms of yearly revenue generated.
Well,
And
hang on. I want you to say that one more time. Can you run that past me again?
yeah, so esports on an annual basis is bringing in as much revenue as the National Football League, which is crazy. That's just completely shocking, right? Um,
Yeah.
but that money is in, like I said, corporate sponsorships, big events like prizes and stuff. But thanks, great timing, Nick. There is actually a move towards embracing Web3 to make gaming more of a global economy. So if you think, I mean, so I'm a gamer, you're a gamer. A lot of people who are watching this stream, like our friend Biscuitmonger, are hardcore gamers,
Hmm.
and you like to grind on video games and collect a bunch of items, right? Like that's your kind of go-to, like Walkabout
Yeah.
Mini Law, for instance.
Yeah. I've got every single ball, every single club. It's an obsession. As soon as the first new map comes out, I run through both in order and collect
Yeah.
everything. I love the
So
collection aspect.
like NFTs are basically just token representations of items on the blockchain. So imagine for a second if you could take the golf clubs from Walkabout, or the items that you collect from World of Warcraft or something like that, and they had an actual monetary value that you could buy and sell with other players. Now all of a sudden we're kind of imagining a world where gaming is a lucrative profession, right? Because you have all of the stuff that you're grinding on actually has real world value that you could buy and sell through Web3 functionality. So gaming, I think, is like one of the biggest and most appealing and maybe like lowest lift for Web3 in the real world. And we're starting to see that come in, like we said, through the ESPL arena and stuff like that. But even through smaller games, like I'm involved in a Stacks project called Indigo, which is a post-apocalyptic like pixel game, and you go do raids out in the wasteland and you defeat enemies and you get their currency tox back, which is like the toxic waste or whatever, but you can use those tokens to buy more items. The items actually come with some sort of value, so the more you play, the more you can earn. You can use those items to level up your character, or like sell them for better items, or even like swap them in a neo swap, which I think is super cool for different NFTs. But yeah,
Yeah.
so gaming, I mean, that's
And
a
then
big one.
not only does it do all of that, it also allows you to trade in-game items from one game to the next. And I know that Engine Coin, for example, ENJIN, is doing a lot of work around integrating Web3 with gaming, and they are lending themselves a lot towards this whole idea of being able to trade between games. So let's say, I play World of Warcraft, you play Diablo or whatever, pick a game.
Sure.
I can trade you a World of Warcraft character to get started, and you can trade me a Diablo character to get
Right.
started. And the whole character could be an NFT, including all of the apparel and gear and experience and everything that's associated with that character. So it
Yeah.
just becomes it unites the entirety of that universe that is gaming, whether that's the metaverse with VR and all of that stuff, though that's still a really wonky term in my opinion. Like if I play a VR game, I'm not really in the metaverse. Like, come on, we're
Sure.
just playing VR games. It's
Yeah.
just a different input
That's a
for
long
your
ways
head.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. So as that stuff is growing, the way that we're going to end up introducing all of this is through Web3. Um, and one more thing on the gaming topic, as far as esports goes, I wanted to mention is, you're talking about gaming being like a lucrative hobby, essentially. If you're doing it all the time, maybe you can make a little bit of money like that, and it also creates content for people to enjoy, which is how you kind of monetize it on the back end.
Right.
But in addition to that, imagine taking an organization like the NFL and turning that into a decentralized autonomous organization. If you did
Yep.
that in esports, now there isn't all of the wishy-washy trades and all of that stuff going on where the organization's trying to just claw tooth and nail to become an organization that stays around for a few years. They can actually disseminate that control and authority to the players themselves, so that me,
Right.
you, and Biscuit, for example, could create a threes team in Rocket League, and if we're actually good, we actually make money doing it. And it,
Right.
it it turns the whole thing into this decentralized meritocracy that actually rewards people for doing the right thing, instead of incentivizing everybody to suck up or be brown nosers or any of the other really negative stuff that goes along with a lot of corporate culture these days.
Right.
So I think that even on a deeper level than what we were talking about earlier, this changes the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
Sorry for that was a bit of a pun, I guess, but
I
um,
like it.
so that's kind of gaming as a whole, right? That's some programmability that we think is really fun and really practical in the long run. What about purely practical stuff? What about the stuff that's like not necessarily super glamorous, but would have a larger societal effect? Is there programmability in NFTs for that sort of thing from your
Yeah,
viewpoint?
absolutely. And I think this gets back to the question that your dad was asking when you were having that conversation. Like, well, how is the transition going to happen? I think something comparable is like identity, right? So, like, games
Hmm.
are all fun and everything, but not everyone connects to them. But everyone that's watching this video has some sort of like, you have your driver's license, you have, your health documents, you have like your insurance or your deeds, like the documents that make up who you are as a person in our current society. Those things are now like really poorly done in web 2. I mean, I don't think that that's a stretch to say. Like, anytime you go to renew your driver's license, it's always a headache. It always sucks. They never have the right records, that you have to wait forever to get things done. So one thing that they're doing to try and upgrade that now is change the IDs from, the old kind of IDs that we've had to the real ID, which has a certain type of like chip in it that's, electronically verifiable and all this stuff. Those are like small steps that they're taking. But imagine if governments decided to make, a mobile wallet that was based off of blockchain where all of your data was stored in a way where, you hold the private keys. So like we said earlier, NFTs are just tokens, and tokens are valuable in web3 because the person can actually verify that they own whatever it is that's in question. You can sign a message and say like, yes, I'm the owner of this particular document.
Hmm.
And you can choose to display them to people. That's what's fun. Like right now, a lot of times data breaches happen, right? Like where your email address is compromised. And even just recently, like our good friend Fibo had his Twitter account compromised.
Mm.
Doesn't even know how it happened. Most likely it was because that information was compromised through something crazy. It could be like Equifax. It could be, some crazy hack that has nothing to do with Twitter, but then credentials get out and now your identity is compromised. But with the blockchain, that can't happen, right? Because private seeds are tied to that particular thing. So I don't think that there's going to be that big of a jump from moving identity to be digitally stored on the blockchain, not just digitally stored in a cloud. Like we could do that, and that'd be ultra web 2, and it'd be kind of scary because the cloud is just somebody else's server at the end of the day, right?
But
Um,
imminently hackable as well.
yeah, extremely, right?
Yeah.
So a couple things I think, and so we, housing deeds and stuff, the bank owns that, right? Like they hold all that information. You have to trust that they're going to keep it safe. Same for health records. Like it varies where you go to get your stuff taken care of. Like this doctor may not have records from that doctor, and like it's just all scattered everywhere. But I think I want to like drill down on something that maybe the average listener would identify with quickly, and that's ticketing. So have you heard about like what's gone on recently with like concerts or like, StubHub, stuff like that?
Yeah, but only from you, because I'm actually, and you'll hate me for this, but I don't know if you know this about me yet or not, actually, which is funny. I don't care for live music at all. I I don't like to go places very often. I've taken a great amount of effort to set up my local environment to be what I want it to be, and I
Yeah.
don't understand why I would leave that for any reason. Like it's got everything that I need, um, other than to go resupply on, Diet Pepsis or something. that's that's about all I do outside of the house, other than work. So, um, ticketing's not a huge deal for me, but it is something that I know a lot of people like. So explain. Well, okay. How about this? I'll explain what you told me, and it'll make sense hopefully. So
Yeah.
basically what's happening is we've got these web 2 ticketing stores, again imminently hackable. So what happens is somebody comes up with an exploit, which that's what happens when half your population's gamers, is we like to find the glitches and things. And so these tech people find that exploit. They set up some sort of really probably very basic script to
Right.
run that as soon as the ticket is released on sale, they buy all of them immediately. And
Yeah.
then they jack up the price by 400% or whatever they want to on a secondary or third party website, I guess, or some other illicit way, Craigslist or something like that. And then they sell those tickets at a significantly higher cost. This does a
Right.
couple of things, right? One, it keeps you from being able to buy the ticket at the price that you're supposed to be able to buy it at. Two, it keeps people from wanting to bother trying to buy tickets from whatever the source is,
Right.
because it's like, it's going to be, why would I even go to that website if they're immediately going to sell out? I'll just wait for the Craigslist spot.
Right.
And then three, it actually hurts creators the most, in my opinion, because those creators are going, well, if I could have charged $400 a ticket, I would have done that. So what you've
Right.
done is you've made a profit and limited the number of people that can come enjoy my art or my creativity or whatever it is that I'm putting on a show
Sure.
about. Is that roughly the situation
Yeah.
right now?
No, yeah, that's 100% it. The big names right now are like StubHub and Ticketmaster. And the one that really hit kind of like a boiling point recently, and I, I ashamedly admit back in the days I used to be enamored with T Swizzle, Taylor Swift a little bit. No longer. I grew up a little bit, but
Hey,
her recent
she puts out some bangers. Not gonna
she
lie.
does. No, like, you can't deny that. So recently her tour that she did, like, because she hasn't toured in a while, she announced this big tour, and I believe it was through Ticketmaster that she did all the sales from. And this happened, and it happened on like I need to look up the actual number, like how many millions of dollars worth of tickets were bought immediately. But I mean, I saw just tons of headlines and tweets of all these people that wanted to go and were prepared to pay a good bit of money, but couldn't because of this particular script issue. So, I mean, this is another ultra low lift for NFTs, right? So all you
Hmm.
have to do is pick, a super cheap, fast like chain. So something like Polygon or something like that. You could do everything within an app. Oh, thanks for this, Nick. This is really helpful. If you want a just a good overview of like what NFTs are and how they work, this is a great article to go to. But basically, you could build a really simple app, very much like what Ticketmaster already uses, because they use QR codes and they scan them, right? So
Hmm.
you could do that same thing, but have it be an NFT instead of just being a random QR code, right? That people can just take from the Ticketmaster store. We using Web3 and NFTs, you can say like, okay, we're only going to allow X amount of sales per wallet that connects, and then it makes it like substantially more difficult for a little bot to be able to go in and just buy everything, because Web3 just adds that exponential layer of difficulty, kind of like we were talking about before. In the same way that it was harder to upgrade from Web 2 to Web3, it's also typically harder to exploit Web3 than it is Web 2. So you
Hmm.
add in these stopgaps that prevent these simple exploits from happening. Now you have happy Taylor Swift fans, and they're using NFTs without really even knowing it, right? They're using the same QR code that they would have before, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, and then of course the difficult part is what we're really trying to accomplish, which is adoption, right? How do you
Yes.
teach, a grandmother who wants to take her little girls to see Taylor Swift, or her 30-year-old grandkid or something like
Yeah.
that, whoever, um, who wants to go see Taylor Swift? How do you teach her how to create a wallet real quick so that she can be like, okay, this is my ticket wallet, these are my private keys? Like,
Right.
explaining all of that is going to be the difficult part, not necessarily the programmability. and
Yeah.
and that's why, even more than infrastructure creation, we want to see more adoption. We want to be able to teach people, okay, what's an NFT? Number one, right? How do you get one? Where does it live?
Right.
And what can you do with it? Right. So, and we've answered some of those questions, right? NFTs are basically just tokens that have programmability, which I guess tokens have programmability on their own. But these are these NFTs. The way that you get it is just like everything else in Web3. You just have to have a little hardware wallet or a software wallet and store it there, right? And
Right.
okay, like now I know that if I pull up my X app on my phone, I can type in my password and I can see everything that's in that wallet. If
Yep.
I go to Sigil or something like that, I know that I'm going to have to type in that password and sign a quick message that says, yes, I'm visiting this website. This is actually me, which
Yeah.
goes to your thing about identity. All of that's easily possible. And then once you get that set up, I mean, it's just like me trying to teach our grandmother how to use email, right? She
Yep.
doesn't necessarily know how to use all of the features in Google's Gmail features, right?
Right.
She doesn't know that. That's fine. But what she can do is jump on there and read messages from other older people who are emailing her different links to maybe a particular musician or a certain jam session that she wants to go to, that sort of thing.
Right.
And she can interact with those messages back and forth.
Right.
Sometimes she hits speed bumps, but she's also 80 plus, so we
Right.
give her that one. You know,
She
like
does.
they didn't even have electricity when she started learning stuff like this. So
Yeah.
um, sorry, I'm getting chat stuff coming up on my screen.
I know, it's really
So it looks like
hilarious. Non-fungible
Phoebus.
tokens. I love it. I'm
Oh,
I'm
that
a
is
fan.
funny. Cool. So,
Uh,
and all of this programmability has really not been genuinely tapped yet. That's something else that I really like to keep in mind. We were very early
very
still.
early.
People are trying to do a lot of cool stuff with it, just like you said, Indigo or Nonish Kingdom, or even just artists being able to actually reap the benefits of their own labors. Artists like 3HANA and Longstreet, they're doing some really cool music specifically on the blockchain. And highly recommend checking out gamma.io and just taking a cruise around, see what's available as far as NFTs. And I guess unless you want to dive into maybe some more programmability aspects, we can go ahead and move on to my
Yeah.
NFT methodology.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to make a quick note of like all the NFT stuff that we've been talking about so far have not just been JPEGs. And I think that's really important to just kind of take a second and acknowledge, right? Everyone's like, well, aren't NFTs just like pictures that I can right click save? Like, no, absolutely not. Everything that we've been talking about so far is like incredible technology that has an exact application that could take us to the next level of like commercial success or like
Mhm.
identity control. It's not just a picture that you buy that's like obscene. Yes, there are JPEG NFTs that make no sense. Like there was a picture of a rock that sold for over $1 million. Is that stupid? Yes, of course that's stupid. But we have to take these small, stupid steps to be able to like make progress. And so the last word on programmability is imagining out into the future. So there is some crazy stuff with NFTs that I don't want to spend time talking about. You should research it. Time locking NFTs where they unlock a message or they unlock a will, for instance, after a certain amount of time. You could have it set so that, if I wanted to create a will for my future kids, I'm going to have like my will unlock by this time locked NFT in like 60 years or something like that. And then voila, there's something that you don't have to trust a third party with because the blockchain is just going to execute this no matter what. That's
Right.
really cool. There's other things like degenerative NFTs that like decay unless you do a certain action to prevent it from decaying. And so you can start to imagine all sorts of crazy things you could do with that tech. But I am more interested in hearing about how you personally have been going about your particular NFT journey. Tell us more about Style Pigeon.
Okay, so um, one, everyone should go check out my NFT collections on gamma.io. It's styled pigeons and warrior pigeons. Look into that just if you want to see what I'm doing with this and the fun that I'm having creating things and trying to build stuff on the blockchain. I have a lot of fun with it. Check it out. See if it's something that you might be into as well. The whole NFT collections that I do are basically their utility is to provide reminders and interest around creating strong values in your life and then trying to live out those values. Soon I want to have some printable stuff to where maybe you can take your NFT and have it printed out and have it on your wall and stuff like that. Just because I think that stuff's fun and interesting and cool. Um, yeah, so there, Nick's got one of the warrior pigeons pulled up. That's the one that I have as my profile picture. I think it's number 8 because I airdropped like 7 to somebody else before I
Got
should
one
have
for
done it in a
yourself.
way that that my wallet was at the top of the air list or airdrop list, but I didn't. So I got like number 8. But anyway, and I'm holding on to it with a righteous fury. So if you want to bid on it, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to highball that. Just FYI. Okay, so that's kind of my initial journey into NFTs. Was I was doing some interesting, fun art just for kicks and giggles, as far as I'm concerned. And John came to me, he's like, "Dude, you realize like you really should create an NFT collection, and you could probably have some people that were, interested enough to kind of join you on your journey and start creating like almost a universe." And I really am interested in universe creation from a story aspect. And now I'm trying to do it in real life, which is super fun for me. However, and actually, this happened. Our friend Casual, we were playing some virtual reality mini golf, and he mentioned something about like, well, you're not actually particularly invested in any big project or anything, right? And I had to admit, I was like, no, actually, I'm not. And the reasons that I wasn't at the time was specifically because NFTs are just way too much for me. Like, I can't keep track of all of the vast number of projects that are going on, and there's Ethereum and Polygon and Avalanche and all these different chains that I can't wrap my head around it. I have a full-time job. I do all this stuff with John. I'm working on a bunch of other projects, which soon you'll see on the website. And it's just too much for me to handle. So along those lines, and I know I'm kind of going a little bit crazy, but let me set this up. Hang in there with me. I
Yeah.
promise I'll wrap it all up neatly. Along those lines, one of my big like life goal things is to be able to create a methodology by which to package information, whether it be just regular data or even wisdom, as I grow older and learn things about the world. How do I package that information and wisdom into the most digestible form possible? Right?
Mm,
How do
yeah.
I package that and then give it to someone else? So I've developed a methodology to get people addicted to NFTs. Now, it starts with an easy step. Acknowledge the fact that you're not going to be able to keep track of every single project on every single chain. It's just not feasible.
Yeah.
So, first step
100%.
is acknowledge that. But second step is pick a chain. Do your research on which chains are doing what, which chains have projects that you think are cool looking, because that's going to keep you going. Which chains have the feasibility and functionality that you think you might be looking for,
Mm,
right? Ethereum's a good one for functionality. They're a massive chain, obviously, and there's bonkers amounts of art and functionality there to be had.
yeah.
I actually thought about getting into Ethereum. Gas prices are a little bit too high for me, and it's also there's so much on it already. It's a little bit of a deep dive for me.
Yeah.
Again, limited time and resources. So I picked Stacks as the blockchain that I was going to focus on. It has really cool functionality, and it's built on top of Bitcoin. That checks all my boxes. So I started diving on Stacks projects. Well, it turns out there's still too many projects to keep up with.
Yeah.
Even
It's
after you
true.
just pick one chain, there's still way too much going on. So then what I recommend is picking a list of 2 projects at first, build a third if you want, a fourth if you want, as you figure out what you're doing and kind of dive a little bit deeper. But pick 1 or 2 at first. The big ones that I picked were actually Badgers, the Bitcoin Badgers, and I also picked out, well, really I've been creating too much to really keep up with Nonish, but that's kind of the next big project that I really like and enjoy. And there's a couple others that are art centric, like the Weed Monsters, where they're just doing cool stuff, and I thought I'd support them, and I like their
Yeah.
art and things that they're creating. So
That's Frank Trask, right?
yeah, and Manimo,
Yeah. Manny Mo. Yeah.
MANNYMA or MOE. They're doing that stuff together, and they're doing really cool stuff, which I support because I'm a creator as well. So I picked up a couple of their NFTs and have
Yeah.
been actually trading them via NeoSwap parties to try and
Nice.
disseminate more Weed Monsters to everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and I
actually,
think
I
they meant it
want to,
out. It's a very successful project.
yeah, I want to take a quick note real quick just to kind of plug that, because that's, in my opinion, one of the cool things to use NeoSwap for as a creator. So if you're
Hmm.
looking to get more NFTs into like various people's hands, going to a NeoSwap is a great way to do it. And I personally, like when I was doing research to find more NFTs that I wanted to, like, it's sometimes it's hard to know. I would just go to a
Hmm.
NeoSwap event and be like, oh, like that's actually how I found the Weed Monsters collection. Is someone put one up for bid on a NeoSwap, and I was like, oh, this is purple. Like this is the coolest looking thing ever. What is this? I need to know what this is. So yeah, I like that from an exploration, but then from a project founder's perspective, like, yeah, getting it into other people's hands, like that's a cool way to do it. So anyway, please
Yeah,
continue.
and there's also music associated with that project because of Frank Trask, and he makes some cool beats. I really like that sort of thing. One day I was actually training Rocket League mechanics, and I just put Frank's music on in the background. I
Oh,
pulled up
that's dope.
I pulled up my NFT and just hit play and let his beats just kind of be on repeat. If I got tired of that one, I'd switch over to a different one. But it was great for just hanging out, chilling, and playing some Rocket League. So
What's
so
really
I pick a
cool.
chain. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I just wanted to mention, like, there's another use case for NFTs. It's music NFTs. We didn't even mention
Mhm.
that, but like in terms of like musicians that want to get better royalties, like we all know kind of that Spotify is a problem because they don't give the best royalties out there, but it's the most widely used app. Music NFTs could solve that because artist gets directly paid for their song, and like you actually own
Yep.
that particular song. So anyway, super cool. Look into that too. Frank Trask, 300, Longstreet, all those people are amazing musicians in the space. So please do continue.
So actually, I'm gonna add to that real quick. One of the really cool things that I've enjoyed about music NFTs specifically is finding people in different regions who
Yeah.
maybe aren't as uh, well, let's say their GDP is not the size of the US's, right? Like less economically stable places where these creators are going, how do I break out? How do I keep creating really cool images of little monsters that look like they're made out of bud? Like, how do I find people who do that or create really interesting, different, culturally
Yeah.
music that's different culturally? The way that I've been finding those people is actually on the blockchain because they can access it no problem
Right.
and they can create that stuff. They don't have access to maybe a producer or a
Right.
label where they're at, but they're still wonderful musicians and wonderful artists. So
Yeah.
I'm finding people like that on the blockchain and having a ton of fun finding local people. So I think it's a wonderful way to share creativity and really get some. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. Some actual diversity into art and culture and things like that. Kind of actually
Decentralization allows
keep
for
going
that,
with the melting pot.
you know?
Precisely, it's the
Yeah.
decentralization force that's sweeping our entire globe right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that people don't see it coming. But anyway, the way to get into NFTs, like I said, is pick a chain, do your own research. Is something that we say all of the time. Do your own research. Look, this is supposed to be fun. When you pick up a book or something, right? You're diving into that universe. Reading the book is doing the research, and that
Mm.
part of that book you enjoy doing. So, take some time, have a glass of whiskey or whatever you want, smoke a J if it's illegal where you're at, and dive into whatever a project has going on. Join their Discord, meet some people. A lot of the projects are still small right now. They love talking to community members, hearing what people like and don't like about the project and what they're working on.
Yep.
Careful with the FUD, but if there's something that you don't like, I'm certain that that artist would be like, oh, very interesting. Let me see if I could, does this interfere with my art, or is this something that I could change with zero effect and then make more people enjoy it and more people feel conveniently able to be into my art?
Yeah.
So those are the really big things that I point out to everybody who's getting into NFTs. So lastly, I'll say that I highly encourage you to not just consume NFTs.
Mm.
I think that the big transition for people with NFTs is when they start creating their own things. Whether you end up minting or not, or minting out or not. Maybe you mint 3 of them. Maybe 3 of your friends were like, "Dude, really support your project. Love that you're starting to create stuff. We're going to mint 1 each even though you way overpriced them. We're going to do this for you because we care about you and we like your art." That's fine, because that extra little bit of creation is what fights against the things that are corrupting the very roots of our society.
Hmm.
We can all be creators.
Yeah.
That's what decentralization does, is how do I produce something that is valuable to other people and that I think is important. So, for example, again, the first project that I launched was the styled pigeons. It's just a collection of a bunch of male models that have pigeon heads instead of normal human heads.
Right.
I think that they look hilarious. I really like them for whatever reason, and it's fun for me to do all of that work in Photoshop. And I just happen to have those skills from making, signatures for forums on the Diablo 2 forums. I don't know
Nice.
if anybody remembers
Yeah, yeah.
D2JSP,
Wow.
but I was active on those forums for quite some time, like 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. for years. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was an obsession. So uh, all of all of that stuff is possible with NFTs if you dive in and you start creating as well. So the styled pigeons, the ultimate reason that I created that was because I had just had a relationship end very badly. Um, it just felt horrible about myself, and I had to move back in with my parents. It was a travesty as a 30-year-old to be like, holy crap, my whole life is falling apart right now, all because this one person is not there anymore. I'm
Yeah.
empty and alone.
Yeah.
And that created this thing in me where I was like I just don't like myself right now. But one of my values is self-respect. It's
Mm.
very important to me to have the self-respect that I deserve and that is necessary for me to keep getting out of bed in the morning. That is a necessary value for me. And it's something very important, I think, in society at large. I think a lot of the things that are plaguing our society have to do with self respect and a lack thereof,
Yeah.
particularly in men. So I created this whole thing where, and simultaneously, I'm seeing people show up to my sales office um, in t-shirts and blue jeans. I'm like,
Right.
you didn't even like put a comb through your hair this morning. You clearly don't care about this job or probably yourself. So
Right.
what can I do about this? Well, I can't convince that individual necessarily. One, because I'm a manager, I can't really have conversations like that without causing a whole wreck at work. But two,
Yeah.
because it's a hard thing to fix in people. You know, a lot of us need professional help to take care of things like that. But what I can do is give you an interesting, fun, and cool image to remind you that when you look at that pigeon man that's on your wall or in your wallet or whatever, you go, you know what? I can actually make the effort to put on a nice collared shirt and some slacks and show up today. I can make
Yeah.
the effort to not look like a bum because I know and I believe that I'm not a bum. I'm a person
Right.
who deserves to have a job, who deserves to have people in his life. I'm a person who believes that he can do well in life and be successful. I have the self respect to put on the clothes that make me look like it, or the hat if you want to
Boom.
put on a straw hat as well.
Yeah.
My dad's in sales and he's the hat guy. He wears fedoras and nice like
And
akubra
he looked.
leather.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is something that's very important to me. And so I made an NFT collection about it. Now, I got lucky and I have some awesome friends, and that collection minted out. I did another one that's actually all about discipline and about being a warrior and the values that go along with that I think is really interesting. John and I are actually, well, you're probably finished with the Book of Five Rings now, aren't you?
Almost. I've got
Okay,
like
okay.
10 pages left.
I know you said you like grind to a halt near the end of the book just because you're like,
Yep.
no, I don't want it to be over.
Yep.
But I've got my copy right here actually. The Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi is a canonical bit of warrior literature from Japan during the I think it was pre-Edo period or beginning of Edo period Japan, feudal Japan. Anyway, regardless of the historical stuff, I've got book summaries and whatnot up on sigil.io that actually will help you get into the warrior way and what that looks like and some minor details. Highly recommend reading the actual literature though.
Yeah,
So
I do
all
too.
of this, I know I'm kind of off on a tangent, but all of this came from Bitcoin, Web3, doing what Bitcoin does for everything instead of just finance. NFTs being programmable, the programmability of Web3, leading me to all of this interesting art and culture that is available on the internet, meme culture as well. I actually got to do a collaboration with Dr. Suss. on the Stacks blockchain, which he does some really cool meme related stuff,
Yeah.
curing cystitis all over the place. So ultimately, it ends up being the question: Am I addicted to NFTs? Yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely. Yeah. Fortunately or otherwise, I'm addicted to NFTs. But am I having fun and enjoying myself and collecting cool art and actually kind of making a profit at the same time? Also, yes. It's a very interesting field to be a part of. And as it grows, again, still very early, as it grows, we're going to see a lot of fortunes being made, but also we're I don't like to emphasize the money thing too much because it's just not really about that to me, though that would be nice.
Yeah.
It's also about freeing ourselves from a regime that has limited the human species in a way that is no longer acceptable as we progress further. Uh, w-
Yeah.
and all of that societal stuff, regardless of your opinion, is still significant. There's something weird going on here, and I
Hmm.
think that all of us agree that we need to continue to head in the right direction, not the wrong direction for
Right.
society. So
Yeah.
maybe if you disagree with me, you should create an NFT project and try and promote your values and things. And I would be
100%.
really happy to read about it and hear about it and find out more.
Yeah. No, Pigeon, man, I really appreciate hearing how like your journey has NFTs and how it's been something that's been like actually impactful from like a life perspective. And it's really impacted me too. Like, reading the Five Rings together, thinking about what it means to be a warrior, making real life changes. It 100% is related to NFTs. It's crazy, right? But
Yeah,
you're totally right. Like we're actually making steps to make ourselves and then our friends better, and that's what society needs right now, I think.
yeah, and don't be scared. Like I said, remember that you have the brakes. You can pull back, get into one NFT project, see what happens. See if you make some friends, actually, because that's what
Yeah.
I did with the Bitcoin Badgers, right? So
Yeah.
I jumped into the Bitcoin Badgers. Next thing you know, I'm streaming their weekly golf sessions,
Yeah.
and it just happened. You just happened to be available for a Wednesday night chill sesh, and I happen to also have a computer that can handle streaming and
Yeah.
do it with the VR headset running,
Yeah.
which is a load. But
Yeah.
I got lucky, and I think that there's something about NFTs that help people get lucky. So find
Yeah.
some friends, pick a chain, dive into a project, see what happens, but make sure you're having some fun along the way. And I think you will. I don't think
Yeah.
it's difficult to have fun in the NFT space.
100% agreed. And if anyone listening has any questions, our handles are right here below. You can tweet at us on Twitter. We'd love to be able to have some conversation with you about NFTs or, about your journey. This is a Bitcoin Badger that's being displayed right here. It's what brought me, Pigeon, Fibo on the screen, Casual, a bunch of our friends together. So take it from us. Like NFTs aren't just JPEGs. Like they can actually change your life and bring some real positive change. And with that, I feel really good about this episode. It was a great talk. I think that everyone
Oh
watching has some good stuff coming. So I wanted to tease out the next episode, unless you had something else you wanted to add real quick.
no, I wanted to actually, well, okay, I won't be theatric. I was going to tease out the next episode too. I was worried that maybe you forgot, but I see that you're on point as always.
No,
So,
definitely not.
next week, or sorry, week after next, we have. Can you find that date for me real quick? We
Yeah,
have a very interesting and dangerous episode coming up. Um,
February 5th.
February 5th. So make sure that you're available February 5th, that Sunday at noon. It's actually going to be more along the lines of some real crime and investigatory forensics and whatnot. Um,
It's
John
gonna
is
be
actually
intense.
going to be interrogating a crypto noob,
Mr.
me.
Pigeon.
So we've gone through this whole journey, and I've been learning a ton, and sometimes asking dumb questions. But I feel like I have a handle on a good bit of it at this point. Over the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna keep doing my research, keep DYORing, if that's a word, and then on February 5th at noon, we're gonna pull up a chair, and John, from his wealth of knowledge, is going to be interrogating me, asking very difficult questions, and see if the pigeon can handle the heat or if the pigeon gets fried.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. So we're calling it Pigeon's Interrogation. I'm going to ask just tough questions about Bitcoin that maybe your friends who know nothing about Bitcoin, or maybe they know just enough to be skeptically dangerous, would ask. So we're going to ask those questions, and hopefully that episode will be a good resource for you watching to be able to have good conversations and be able to clap back at those haters that ask the hard questions. So hey man, I really appreciate the time, dude. This is such a good talk. I learned a lot personally, and we've known each other for like our whole lives. So I'm really happy.
Literally.
I hope
Well,
lots of other people have. Yeah, you've
I've
known
known you for
me,
all of
yeah,
yours.
for all of my life. Yes. Anyway, it was great, man. I love it. I'm really happy to be creating in this space with you. I think we survived through most of the bear market. Here we are, season 2, gingerly. It feels good, right?
Yeah, yeah, it feels good. I'll admit that I'm tired, but holy cow, I can't wait to. I'm actually taking this whole afternoon to keep building and working.
Nice.
So
That's what we like to
maybe
hear.
sometime I'll get some rest, but
Yeah.
not until we stack those sats.
That's right, man. Well, big thanks to you for being my co-host. Big thanks to Nick for producing for us. He's a gem. We love him. And big shout out to Bitcoin Live family. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, there's playlists with a bunch of other awesome shows, all produced by the Bitcoin Live channel. And then finally, I want to say thanks to Roundly X for sponsoring us. Go dollar cost average some Bitcoin, track those NFTs in your portfolio.
Oh, I have
Yes,
something to add to this actually. I was
real
actually
quick.
on a call. Yeah, I'm being super fast. I was actually on a call. They were doing some testing for some of the new UI for Roundly X, and
Oh yeah.
they have some cool stuff coming. Like I'm really excited to continue using the app, and I can't say exactly any details because not all of it's guaranteed, but you should check it out. It's going to be
Yeah.
exciting.
Good stuff coming. Roundly X is killing it. So, yeah, all that being said, thank you for watching, and we will see you on February 5th for Pigeon's interrogation. Nick, can you roll the video, please?